feeling like race season, Coach?
It is. And it feels awesome today here in Chattanooga. Today is March 8th, the year 2021. Welcome aboard. This is the Crushing Iron Podcast, and we are episode 458. The most stressful part of our day, figuring out what podcast episode we are on. Right. Even though we have a calculator for it, we have an actual plaque thing we can use as well. But welcome aboard. We hope you had an awesome weekend. It looked like, from what I understand and looking through Training Peaks this morning, a lot of people, it was windy apparently on yesterday, a lot of 30-mile-an-hour winds yesterday across the entire globe. Everybody had a headwind, but it was warmer. It was beautiful here. It's beautiful here again today. So we hope you had an awesome weekend and get out to do things. And I had a tracker loaded on Saturday, and it was one of the greatest feelings I've had in a very long time.
Yeah, man.
Even though the tracker sucked, it was.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it was. You get. It's like it's like the weather. It's like the weather, man. We talk about this all the time. You get really excited and you expect things to go perfectly because you get excited and you're like, but it's just a tracker. You know, it's like I texted a couple of people because we had five or six athletes doing the Woodlands Half Marathon and Marathon 10K, which I believe from one of our athletes here, I think is the largest race that's happened since the pandemic started, and now I think we're going to see more. They had 4,000 people, I think, and I'm like, yeah, which is a pretty large event there, which bodes well, I think, for Ironman Texas and how they kind of got the race going in terms of like corrals but yeah, had the tracker going, and it was like, although I had to wait 45 minutes for my first update because they were supposed to start at like 7 a.m. and like 7:50 rolled around, I'm like, I'm not seeing any updates from anybody that started. Nothing happened. But then again, as usual, as trackers go, then I got like 19 notifications in like a 25-second span. But it was awesome just to see people, even like on my Facebook feed. Like on Saturday morning, I scrolled through. There were a couple big races, draft legal events that happened in Clermont, Florida this last weekend. But it was like the first time, I think, since Ironman Florida, I guess last year, and because we had like 10 people doing it. Outside of that, just for people that we're acquaintances with and friends with, like I scrolled through Facebook, I think Saturday morning I came in and rode, and I saw like a bunch of different race morning, bibs and race kits and whatever. And it kind of felt like the first day, like the first race weekend of the year was here. And it was awesome. Just a good feeling. I think that combined with the energy of just kind of like the sun coming up earlier and it being brighter and just warmer weather, it was just an awesome weekend to kind of feel back in like we're back in the swing of things.
Yeah, I noticed on your team email that
I was pretty pumped.
You're pretty pumped. We had talked about this before.
I was pretty pumped, man.
You're not a guy that like will text or do the double question mark thing, but you're definitely not shy on the exclamation point.
I did. Listen, we'll do it. We'll do the intro here. I am guilty as charged. I am a huge pet peeve of mine.
Yeah.
Is the multiple question mark. Like, what do you mean? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Like, isn't one sufficient? Like, isn't one sufficient? I know, but when I get excited, I am a hypocrite and I add multiple exclamation points. But I feel like that's totally different. I feel like when you're excited about something, you deserve multiple exclamation, because one's you're like, woo. Two, you're like, all right. Three, you're like, okay, this is outstanding. And then a couple extra just for the cherry on top. But the additional question mark thing is a huge pet peeve.
I see that.
You know that.
No, I get it,
for a long time.
I've had a long standing battle with myself to use less exclamation points because I think it's like a little bit, like really? I mean, like sometimes I text it and I put an exclamation point. I'm definitely not like high five in the air in my vicinity.
Okay, you can't say that because you've also, and I've never texted this in my entire life. I've never texted LOL in my life. You have, and I guarantee you're never laughing out loud.
That's maybe not true.
That is true. I guarantee you.
Yeah, you're not laughing out loud. It should be laughing in silence or something.
That's fine, but you always
you just kind of chuckle.
Drop in like an LOL. I'm like, that's bullshit. He's not laughing right now. I can see you right now.
It's happened.
You're on your couch, and people do it all the time. They LOL, and I'm like, you're not laughing. That's like there are standards of like emoji use and like texts and exclamation points and shorthand like that you just use. Like for me, if I give you a thumbs up, that's me telling you the conversation's over. Right? Like if everyone does it, like everyone has like their conversation ender text. Like, and I know this is probably like a spoiler, but like if I'm in a conversation, it just keeps going, I'm like, all right, if you just throw in like a thumbs up, that's usually like, okay, that's like the international symbol for conversation's finished. We'll pick this up at a later time. I'm busy. You're busy. Let's get back to work. Like, or you drop in my other biggest pet peeve I think in life, period,
in life,
is when people drop in the simple K.
Oh,
just the letter K. That infuriates. I'm like, how hard is it to drop the letter O right in front of it and just say, okay, period, or okay, exclamation point, K. It's like the laziest form of communication ever.
Because it's always a capital K, too.
I know, you're like, K, like you could K care less.
Yeah.
Like most of you could probably care less about our podcast now, but like, we'll get, you're like, I thought this
was kind of a big deal. I think the thumbs up ends. The thumbs up should end everything.
For sure. I think thumbs up. Good to go, man.
Stop sign, thumbs up.
Exactly. Same thing. It's right. Stop sign, thumbs up. Like
start stop sign.
Yeah. Thumbs up's like, all right, good talk. Like that's pretty much what thumbs up are, or 10-4. 10-4 is also code for good talk. It was nice. Let's get back to work. And we'll get back to the podcast. If it's your first time tuning in and you're still here, yes, this is in fact a triathlon related as you can see, very related, very distant related podcast. But we talk about it all. We talk about swim, bike, and run specifics, training. We do race recaps. We'll be starting to do race previews, hopefully here in the next few weeks with Texas 70.3 beginning of next month, and Ironman Texas, and Florida 70.3. We have a bunch of athletes hopefully racing in April and then also May. But Mike and I, as both coaches and athletes, have been for quite a long time. As we do this podcast for about 5 years, we have 57 podcasts in the archive. Yeah, 57 and a half. Yeah. Then the archive, Mike does an awesome job of outlining those, kind of going through and making notes as we talk about things on podcasts. So you can kind of pick and choose what you like. You can go through an order, but for the most part, we just kind of sit back, relax, as you've seen, and have an open, honest discussion about what we're going through personally. A lot of times what our athletes that we coach are going through. Sometimes we'll pop into our Facebook group, which is Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. You can answer one simple question. We'll let you right in. And that's what we do. We come to you twice a week, Mondays and Thursdays. Hope you have fun. Hope you enjoy the ride, and you can take something from our podcast and apply it to your endurance sports journey.
Yeah. If you're like, oh, damn, I got a race coming up, and you're not sure what's going on, hit me up, crushingiron@gmail.com. I'm doing some coaching here.
Yeah, and I gotta tell you, you're picking up a lot of steam. So if you're interested in having Mike coach you, or having him manage your plan, via the club, go over to our website c26triathlon.com. It's got all things Coach Camps Community. Hop on the coaching tab, scroll down a few, click on the club, learn more about that. We'll plan your season for you, because we are going to have a season. And also for coaching, you can click on Mike's bio or email him directly at crushingiron@gmail.com.
Mm-hmm. And I guess we're going to wait for the coffee review because we've been kind of slacking here. So let's get into the podcast.
Yeah, we had a bad experience.
We did?
With the what was it called? The squid? We both spilled coffee in our lap the first day we had was it Angry Squid?
Angry Squid.
Angry Squid. I thought I had my my top on my to-go mug and took a sip, and it just like it scorched me pretty solidly. I had to, like you saw, like I had to take my.
There's like an adrenaline boost. Like I picked up my coffee cup and it just like threw it on my chest.
I know, and it was like, man, this thing has a mind of its own. So I legit had to go put my run shorts on and take off my boxers and my pants and go like hang drying somewhere.
But we love it.
But we love it. It's very good coffee, as you can tell by the
Pale Horse Coffee in Chesapeake, Virginia.
Yeah, look it up. Shop on their website that they hopefully have.
PaleHorseCoffee.com.
And yeah, there you go. I've got topics. Do you have a topic? Because you seem just as energized as I do today.
No, I don't really have a topic. I was gonna, pick out of your email a little bit.
Go ahead, pick out of it. Besides picking out of my exclamation points. Simmer it down, be more monotone next time.
Yeah, the one thing I noticed is like you said that you were patient, and it was really painful to have to wait through a little injury a little bit, and but you did it, and it seems to be well worth it.
Yeah, I think a lot of people go through this. It's either multiple times a year,
constantly,
or constantly, like if you're going through it, but. Yeah, listen. Like when in professional, this isn't an age group or only thing. Professionals go through this. Elites go through this. Like anytime you're trying to push the boundaries of what your body can handle to kind of squeeze every last ounce of, fitness you can out of it to do your best, you always end up getting close or sometimes going over the edge or doing something you shouldn't do. Like that's just part of it. Like I don't think anybody really ever stays totally injury free for their, the course of their entire, triathlon, running, cycling, swimming, career. Like you see, like I think almost every single professional runner, not every single one, but like I would say over 50 to 60% of them have at some point like had a stress fracture in their foot or somewhere in their feet or in their legs. Like they just do, because when you press your body and you ask it to do so much, you're going to have something. But for most people, and this is true of all, I think, type A athletes, it's how patient are you coming back? And we had run camp. This is back in, it seems like 5 years ago, but it was really just like a month ago. And I think I put in like 52, 54 miles that week with a lot of elevation. That was a lot of running, and then sat a lot. And so I think I just a really tight IT band, which, if you ever had, ITB syndrome, it's like, it can be just like debilitating in terms of like not being able to run. It could be, not being able to ride. And so I didn't do much that week, and then had a friend pass away, and then end up having just to kind of go out, not having to, I chose to go out and just kind of let it out. And I went on to run, and then I honestly, like, to be totally transparent, like I knew within like the first mile that it was not a bad decision, but I knew I probably wasn't going to feel that great after, because I thought about turning around. But then I honestly thought to myself, like, I'm going to be so pissed if I like want to go out and like let off some steam and like work through my feelings and where I was, that if I had to turn back, because I got up and drove over to Lookout Mountain, the Guild Trail. So I didn't just run from my house. I got up and like, made a production out of it, and got up and like drove, and like, I'm going to be so pissed if I turn back around and be like, it's going to be like the straw that broke the camel's back. So I was like, you know what, just manage it. And if it nags you, it nags you. But, it's nothing like I didn't feel like I was breaking anything, obviously. I knew it was just going to be kind of like, it was going to be kind of a lingering issue for who knows how long. So I got done about a mile 8, I think it was like a 10-mile run. Around mile 8, I was like, this isn't good. So I actually slowed way, way, way down, because I was just like really, really tight. My IT band was tight. My knee was hurting. I think it's your perineal tendon, which is right there, like outside of your calf. It's supposed to like, that helps like support your ankle. And that was the biggest thing I think I learned, was that I was doing too much. And you ran on the trails at run camp, but like the terrain, it's very uneven. You're stepping on a lot of rocks, a lot of gravel. So you're always your ankle's always kind of supporting your foot, which is going every single way. I think I just overextended it, and I could not barely walk, but I was very, very tender and kind of limping noticeably the next few days. I took, I think, 4 or 5 days off, and then I went out. We have a huge hill going up to my house. So I actually drove, this is obviously like a couple weeks ago, but drove down the bottom of the hill and drove over to the park where I could just run on flat. Because if it was painful, I didn't even want to walk up my hill. Mm-hmm. So I tried to and then I ran, I don't know, maybe not even a quarter mile. And I thought, nope, too early. And I honestly think that was the run that allowed me to get back to where I was this last week, because it wasn't painful. It was just, I could just tell it was there, and I wasn't going to be able to do anything productive. And so I actually just called it, walked back to my car, and I think I took the rest of the week off, rode a little, and then this last week I started to feel better. And so I rode on Monday, and then Tuesday I woke up and I said, all right, I'm going to run very slow. I don't care what my pace is. I just want to be pain-free. I don't care if I'm a little bit tight, because I think that's expected after you haven't run for a while. Like, I think like a lot of times we expect to be, wake up and experiment and be 100% totally healthy and totally back. Like you saw me in here, I was rolling. I was using your fancy little Theragun thing to like work through my knots. And I really just kind of figured out my IT band was done. I got that loosened up. I just had this one like huge knot, I think, in what I think is like your perineal tendon. I was like, I just need to get this worked out. And I think honestly running on it was helpful, because it helped warm it up and get it a little bit loose. So I worked on it some afterwards. Because a lot of times with tight and stuff, I don't think that totally taking everything off is like the way to go. And I'm obviously not a doctor, because I rode some and had no pain. I think that helped loosen it up some as well. But I was like, all I can think of like is just continuously letting it sit stagnant and not doing anything. Like there's a difference in rest, and then there's a huge difference in, I think, in rest and practicing active recovery, which is trying to not be hurt anymore by doing things that, you need to do to get healthy, not just resting it and not doing anything, like just being, frankly, just like lazy and sitting on your butt. Yeah. And then I was like, so I took it easy. I had 30 minutes, and I was tight, but I wasn't in pain. I was like, all right, that's good. So I rolled it the next day. All right, I went from 30 minutes to 35 minutes, ran a little bit quicker. The next day, 40 minutes, but only bumped it up 5 minutes. 40 minutes, all right. And then I started to feel better. I was like, all right, next day, and then 45 minutes. And I was like, the next day, and then I rode here real short, but I kept everything flat. And then, yesterday I went out on my long run, and I kept it close to home because I wanted to kind of run around this side of Stringer's Ridge back into downtown Chattanooga. I was like, but I don't want to get too far away because then things get bad, then I'm going to be in a bad spot. So I kept it around the house for the first like 4 or 5 miles, and I felt great. Of course, it also felt spectacular yesterday morning. Like it was no humidity, it was cool, and I felt like $1,000,000. I was like, all right, I think I'm going to push it. Not like irresponsibly push it, but like see if I'm like from a resiliency standpoint, I'm all the way back. Like I can deem myself, I can clear myself, as totally healthy. End up having a really, really good run, and I had no pain the rest of the day, and I feel like I feel like I didn't take like a week and a half, 2 weeks off. Like, I wouldn't say like I wouldn't say that I lost fitness or I didn't lose fitness. I would just say I felt healthy, which for me was like the biggest win. I didn't really care what my pace was, or it was if I can run for an hour and a half and I feel healthy when I'm done, then I'm back. And that was really all I wanted, and that's what I got. I was very, very happy to have that. Just being able to run, having that back in my routine.
I think it's a good point because we talk about injuries in this sport, but I think mainly they're aches and pains a lot of times. And so I always talk to my athletes about like when they're going through this sort of thing, and is like training to heal. And I think you kind of said that, it's like just to your, active recovery and, really keeping an eye on what you're doing out there, because you can, you want to move the blood around. You want to kind of loosen things up and do that sort of thing. Because like, with my situation over the last year with the plantar fasciitis and stuff, and thankfully I haven't brought that up in a long time, but now because I've been dealing with the shoulder thing, which I think is like twice as bad. It's the most bizarre, weird thing. And I keep, saying this to people, but I've been trying to figure out what that training to heal is with my shoulder, because it's just like, and like you're saying, like the more you kind of sit around and like stew on it, like it's the worst for me in bed, like at night. I'm like, that was a pretty good day, I feel good. And then all of a sudden, like it just starts killing me. So what do we do? It's like, I do think that there's something to be said for that. You got to keep moving it. And, if it's not like a broken bone or a torn tendon or any of that kind of stuff, or, obviously check with, proper authorities on that. But like,
yeah, we are not proper authorities.
Like trying to figure out how to get through these little pains and aches and things like that. And I'm glad to hear that, because I think a lot of us go through that sort of stuff, and how do we get through it? And I don't think just, quote unquote, laying around and resting, straight resting is always the answer. I always just, I'm always trying to figure out how to move things in ways that aren't just, going to kill me. But it's a pain in the,
literally, it's a pain. It's almost a pain in your neck.
Definitely
for you. But no, I think, obviously, again, like, we usually talk about this on the outside of our podcast. We're not talking about emojis and, text responsibility, but we're not professionals. So we are not experts, but we've been doing this for a long time, right? And like, I'm 40, you're, in your 50s, and we've been doing this sport for a very long time. And, we've had but I do like, there's always going to be aches and pains. It doesn't mean that you're trending towards being injured. I think you just have to be smart. And then, and I'll say, like, I rarely ever do anything like I did, a couple weeks ago when I ran. From an emotional standpoint, I just needed to do it, and I'm okay with it. For me, it was worth the week and a half I took off of no running, just because it helped me put me back in an emotional and mental place, because that's the thing. Like, and I think that's the risk we always run, literally, is that running and cycling and swimming is so much of a therapy for so many people that when you do things, when you don't do things, it's not so much the risk of being hurt and losing the ability to go out and perform in your next race. But for so many of us, it's like, for think of it this way. It's like, think of it in a way of like, for people who aren't involved in endurance sports and who work a lot, and the only outlet they have is to go see their therapist, and they see them every day for 30 minutes, kind of like we do. We train every day for most of you, 30 minutes or more, which is a lot of people's therapy. Like, it's a way to work through your feelings and thoughts and get your endorphins moving and feel better about yourself and get outside and get vitamin D or run with a group. Like, those things are positive. So think about, your therapist calling you, be like, hey, I broke my leg, I can't see you for 2 months. You'd be like, excuse me? Like you'd be devastated, right? Yeah. Like you've lost your ability to do something for yourself each day. And I think that's a huge fear that athletes have. And that's why I think finding that balance of being smart, but also pushing yourself, but just trying to think about, do I want to lose my therapy for a week and a half? Or do I want to lose it for a month and a half? Right? Like in the scheme of things, a week and a half feels like forever, but it's about just really understanding and also like troubleshooting. I think because I think we're all so very quick to like, again, like I'm not an authority on this in any way, but I feel like one of my strongest traits is, though, I'm a problem solver. That's what I do for a living as a coach. Like, you're a problem solver. You're a relationship person. You're a psychologist. You're a social worker, and you're a problem solver. That's what you do. But my mind, and you know this for me, is like I'm always in like a problem solving mode. Like sometimes I search for problems. When I have an injury, or
you
when
said it, dude.
What?
I'm just kidding. Sometimes I search for problems.
I do. Like I'm like let's fix this.
It's going good. Let's find a problem here.
That's how my mind works, man. Like I'm always like that. It's not I think it's a positive trait and a negative trait. But anyway, but I feel like one of my strong suits within that department is I'm good at backtracking and thinking through, okay, how did I get this? Why did I get it? And what should I do to fix it? Like, I don't need to go to the doctor and be like, hey, well, you need to do these 4 PT exercises, and that's going to get you right back to me. I was like, hey, well, what do I think, right? Just by using general common sense of having been in the sport for a long time. All right, why was your IT band sore? Well, you ran 50-something plus miles that week with a ton of elevation. You ran hard. You know, the hillier it is, you know, it's going to put more strain on your IT band and your hamstrings. Then you know that your ankles, or I probably don't have the strongest ankles, but you're running on terrain where it's super rocky, like, you know, thick rocks, where you're having to, you're just worried about turning your ankle more than anything, right? So you're those stabilizing muscles like your peroneal tendon, they're having to work extra hard. So I got done with the race, you stood around for a while, you know, and then you sat in a chair for 4 hours playing spades, which is all we did was play cards right at camp. And then the next day, and then you didn't do much active recovery. You woke up the next morning, then you drove, and you sat some more, and then you were tired and fatigued, so you sat all week in your office chair working. That wasn't good at all. It just made me more tight, right? And then I didn't do anything. Then I went out and just ran hard. Okay, well, that was a mistake. So let's troubleshoot. It was hilly. That was a problem for me in terms of, and ankle stability. That was a problem. So when I wait and when I address those where I was tight, which wasn't getting a massage by even Steven, it was using the Theragun and like stretching things out, was all right. Now, when I go back to running, what do I need to do? Okay, well, let's probably stick to just flat surfaces. Okay. And let's definitely stick to the street, right? Just be careful of like how much your ankle is you know, rolling one way or the other, because you don't want to put any extra strain. Just like shuffle and keep your feet planted as firmly and as almost as equal as you possibly can. And I took like the most boring, like just back and forth street routes. Like, let's just limit, you know, while reintroducing some stress, I wanted to limit what I thought were the attributes that got me to where I was. So I ran on totally flat streets. I walked up my hill, and then slowly thought, all right, let me start with some slow inclines. This Friday, Saturday, and so I thought, all right, and then all of a sudden I was back. It was like, but I think sometimes like we have a hard time, and I think athletes do as well, especially if you're new to sport, is just kind of backtracking and thinking, all right, what really caused this problem? Am I really hurt? Am I really injured? Or just do something stupid that overstrained a certain area? Now, what do I need to do to get myself back and address those issues in just really like a common sense kind of way? Okay, I obviously have a huge knot. I had a huge knot out on the outside of my calf. That's the problem. It's not like my calf is torn, right? It's just that, like, work out the knot, run easy, and then work on it some more, and then just kind of see if you can slowly build yourself back. But it's not going to be like an overnight thing. Like, and you kind of have to test it, like I did, I think, with, you know, shorter, very, 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 very easy runs. But just work your way backwards. I can just kind of, again, troubleshoot how I got here, and then what do I need to do to address it. It's usually just something as simple as just like common sense and thinking about, okay, this is what I did. Now, what do I need to do to fix it? And not again, because, you know, when you say you just need to rest is just overall, I think, like, rest your body, but don't like not do anything for it, right? Like, if you're given exercise from your PT, address, be active in your recovery. Don't just I'm healing up from an injury doesn't mean you're just sitting on your butt unless you have like a cast on, right? It's like, but I think that's a huge misconception. It's kind of along with like when people use the word taper, it's like, oh, it's time to be rest. It's time to, no, it's time to be, it's time to actively participate in your taper by staying crisp and staying fit and doing the sessions you need to. It's not about eating like crap and sitting on your butt for 2 weeks, right? It's like you have to be actively engaged in the process of getting better, whether it's working through a taper, getting ready to race, whether it's coming off an injury, whether it's like you have to do things. You can always be doing something to get yourself back and to test things out. And that's why, again, the sport is so wonderful, because you have 3 different opportunities, and rarely are you gonna encounter an injury or a niggle or a procedure that's going to keep you out of doing all 3. Usually you're just going to be limited to like, all right, you can't run or you can't ride or you can't swim, you can't get wet, can't get in the water, you have stitches. You can still ride your bike. You can still do something. I think that's one of the many wonderful things about triathlon is that we have so many opportunities no matter what happens.
And I think a lot of times triathlon gets blamed for these kind of things, but like you're saying, if you backtrack and go through what your life is all about, and for most of us, a lot of us is sitting in a chair for 10 hours a day or 8 hours a day, leaning into a computer, hunched in, like tensed up and all this kind of stuff. And then, yeah, we go run and it feels good at the time. But like, that's why I'm always about, these ideas of running warm-ups, especially, whether it's just kind of bridges or just doing something to kind of loosen things up and get the blood flowing before you actually go run, because I do think that there's a correlation between running in a tense, like cramped up sort of state of mind. That's why a lot of us, maybe even say, boy, that first 2-3 miles was terrible. We go out there and start running from our stiff in a desk chair mode and expect things to be, especially because if you're in mid training form and you're running like hour and a half, 2 hours here and there, and you're thinking to yourself, man, why does mile 1 hurt so bad? Well, maybe that's why. There's this idea of dynamic warm-ups and things like that I think we'll go out and ride our bike for 5 hours, and, that's sometimes that we loosen up slowly and get into it. But like when we go run for an hour and a half, we don't have 10 minutes to dynamically warm up our bodies and get the ankles and the blood flow to the places that need to be ready to sustain the pounding. And over time, I just think that really plays a role. Maybe it would be nice to be nice and warm, and then actually, that's why I think a lot of times with these short off the bike runs, real easy ones, that they feel excellent because you're warmed up. Mm-hmm. And when we go into a run and try to warm up in the run, we have a tendency to go too fast, probably out of the gate, and the next thing you know, it takes us 5 to 6 miles to even feel good.
Add that to the fact that athletes are now getting into a time of year where, for a lot of them, especially if they have an early season race or a mid-season, Ironman or really long distance races, that their fatigue is also going up because their volume is going up, right? And like once you get that's just part of the game. Like I think if you allow your body the appropriate amount of time to warm up, because the first 5 minutes when I get on the bike are the worst. Like, unless I'm doing intervals, they are the worst. They're the most uncomfortable. My legs are like, what are you doing? I don't want to do anything today. And after about 15 minutes, they get a good lather, like, this is fine. I feel pretty good. It takes, the same thing with the swim.
Every single Training Peaks comment says that.
Yeah, it's like,
didn't feel good at first.
Yeah, and then I felt great, or then things warmed up, or, it took me about 30 minutes to really get into my run, but once the legs opened up, I felt awesome. It's like, that's kind of how it's supposed to go. Once you start to build some fatigue, you have to give your body time to get going. Like, I swear to you, this has happened to me every single race I've ever done in my entire life. The first 200, because there's not many opportunities to warm up with the swim anymore. In the water, you just kind of start from cold. And that I hop in the water in the first 400 meters, I've never raced and I haven't thought to myself, my arms are done, right? My arms are toast. How am I going to make it 1.2 or 2.4 or 600 meters? Or why are my arms burning so hard right now? It feels excruciating. They are the worst strokes. It's the most pain I'm in the swim, the first 200 to 400 meters. It's the same thing from people come out of the water. Your legs feel the worst because all the blood, it's like it's blood just going from one part of the body to another. But all it is that your blood's been kind of hanging out throughout, dispersed through your body very evenly like it's supposed to. And then you hop in the water and for me, like I don't kick very much at all. It all goes to my arms. And so but once it gets up there and it's doing what it needs to do, then I'm like, all right, that's right. Like, I just got to give it time. You don't need to panic and be like, this is terrible. This isn't going to go very poorly. Do you just, and even though I
How'd I
remind,
get too out of shape.
exactly, oh, I'm out of shape. Like this is going to be the longest day ever. But like you just have, and even if you remind yourself, you still, I know I do, get caught in that moment like, oh my God, this is the worst. Same thing goes when you run off the bike, right? In a race, you're like, how am I going to make it? I'm running like a newborn baby elephant. I can't, I'm running crooked. I'm going zigzag. Like I can't, like this is going to be the worst. And then after a mile or two, you're like, oh, now I found my stride, right? Because you're going from, a certain cadence or a certain motion, your bike to something totally different. That's impact. I think that's one of the biggest things that people I don't think, remember is that you're going from a no impact, cadence and almost a stride on your bike to total impact on the run with a totally different stride. Like it's going to feel weird and it's going to feel different. You've been doing the same motion repetitively for 2.5 to 8 hours, right? Depending on what distance you're like, yes, it's going to feel different. It's going to feel weird, but you know what? Running off the bike isn't going to prepare you. You got to run more, but you have to give yourself more time to get into that. And that's why you're like, I end up feeling pretty good. Like once about, mile 2, mile 3 hit, it's just, we jump to these quick conclusions of, I've got to stop or I've got to keep going, except for like really understanding that usually every mile is different, no matter what. Every 20-minute segment of your ride is going to feel different. Like it really is incredible, like how unbelievable the body is and how it can adapt and how it can change and how it can kind of get back to where you want it to be in such a short amount of time. But also at the same point, 30 minutes later can feel like absolute trash, right? And then it's just very hard, again, in terms of like, since we have races, I think, coming, is just to remember that feeling of like, let's not make any rash decisions about how the day is going to go based on what I'm feeling this moment, especially during the swim and especially on the bike, right? Now, once you get to the run, now you're kind of getting more towards the end of the game where you can start to kind of, triage how you're feeling, what your body's doing and where you are mentally and see how much longer you have to go and what you can do. But on the bike and the swim, like you're going to feel like you're going to go through periods of greatness and failure all within like a 30-minute span. But it's how you don't respond or do respond in those moments that's going to really set yourself up for success, for the remainder of the day or just a general session, right? It's just not jumping to conclusions about how, the same thing like you were saying, so many athletes say, oh, I started out feeling like trash and then my legs came around and I felt great. Like it ended up being a really, really great run. I think it's such an important thing to note and to remember and remind ourselves of as athletes that, go back and read those comments before you go race, because you could feel like trash the first 2 hours of your race and feel like it's the worst day ever. And then you get to the run, you're like, there the legs are. This feels incredible. And then end up having a really, really good day.
Mm. Yeah, I think that applies to waking up.
That's right.
Like I knew I slept pretty good last night, but I was laying there in bed going, man, I don't know if I'm ready. Because I think sometimes when you get, that deep rest or that dark, sleepy rest, you feel more tired, but you're actually revived. You just got to get the blood going. And I think that's sort of the analogy with, just starting a workout or something like that. It's just like, all right, we got to organize the body and the blood flow and everything like that. And just give it a second to work its way out. And you can, you just got to face it. You got to go into it, walk into the fire. And that's when you're going to realize that, man, I'm in a pretty good spot. It's like when I leave here and I go upstairs to, 2 flights of stairs to go get lunch. Sometimes I'm just gassed because I've been just sitting here. I haven't warmed up
tight,
for it.
Right.
How about that? We're in like great triathlon shape and we go up a couple flights of stairs and we're just like gassed.
Same thing goes for yard work. You're like, man, I'm in the zone. I'm feeling good. And you're like, can I move this pot? I'm like, oh my God. Like I need somebody give me a dolly. Like I can't do this right now. You're going to be sore for like a week, but no, it is. And I think again, like, especially when we've gone from being in like a strictly training state for the last 12 to 18 to 24 months, unless you're that person who, probably unfortunately swims or bikes and runs all out all the time, which I don't condone. When you hop into your first race, it's not going to feel fun for a long period of time. Like, and I think that's part of like why it's going to be so important to get in and race no matter what, just to kind of, remind yourself what this actually feels like, right? Because like, and that honestly, that's like part of what I've been thinking about for Texas 7.3. I was thinking about, I was on the bike on Saturday. I was like, man, I'm trying to get in shape for this race. I'm going to do it no matter what. It definitely won't be my best result ever, more than likely, but the biggest thing I'm gonna do is just like I just need to remind myself, which sounds interesting when it's something you should look forward to, is like how bad a lot of it's gonna suck, right?
Yeah.
Like, and how uncomfortable things can be, but on the flip side, how well you still can tolerate those levels of being uncomfortable, or just because races are single events, but you have to practice. The more you do them, the better you get at them, because you gain experience. You don't just gain fitness. You don't just gain a new time or a new PR or a new course, whatever, or like you gain experience and wisdom of what you've just gone through physically and mentally and emotionally, to think, all right, well, and I think it'd be great. And I try to do sometimes, and I totally forget on half the races, but like go back and think of like all the races you've done and think about all the different feelings you've had in like the swim, from being a lot of breath to smiling to feeling great to feeling terrible. And then same thing goes with bike. Like, you feel great, you feel bad. Honestly, like I was thinking about this on the bike on Saturday. I was like, you know what? I'm at this rate, I'm probably just going to go into the race in Texas and just not wear anything, like no watch, no bike, not even a bike computer.
Really?
And just listen to. Don't quote me on that. That's a legit thought I'm having, because I just want to I just want to get out there and have fun, honestly. And if it does happen, like I would feel incredibly lucky and fortunate to be a part of, the first, North American 70.3 this year. That will have happened, and enjoy the moment, but really just kind of remind myself of how things feel and kind of be more in the moment than looking at numbers or time. Like, I didn't wear a watch the last time I did that race. I don't like wearing a watch period when I do, but I like using a bike computer for the obvious reasons, like to pace by power and just be smart. But I definitely don't want one on the run. But I thought about just kind of going blind on the bike too, and just kind of feel my way through and remind myself of things. And because even if you can go into a race without having any expectations and kind of knowing you're not in your greatest shape, you still want to execute to the best of your ability. And I think it's important to remove any kind of mind games possible. And so, go back like to where I feel like I was this last November, and then to where I was last time this race. Even though I don't have any expectation for it, I know that if I see something, I'll be like, yeah, like coulda, woulda, shoulda, but I didn't. But ultimately, you know what? You get what you deserve. Which that would be the result. But I do, like, I feel like you have to become like emotionally and mentally calloused when you race, and you can only do that by racing, because it's such a different animal. Even if you do, like race paced workouts, or like it's the environment, it's the level and length of intensity, it's the amount of pressure, it's the people, it's the energy, it's the course. It's all different. It's not a workout. It's just a different day, but it's a day where you can gauge so many different things. And so the more you do it, the better you get at it. And that's why I think you have to get out there, race, and just race the rust off.
Mm-hmm. So what would scare you the most about racing just without a bike computer? I mean, not scare you, but like,
Not knowing how far I've gone.
Right. Yeah. That's it. I was going to say
how much longer do I have to sit in this damn saddle?
Because obviously I've done that a lot.
Yeah.
I normally, if I have a bike computer that just has, speed and time, and I'm like, I kind of, go by feel a lot of times, but I know that if I'm like, I'm aiming for this amount of time, then I kind of go, I'm falling behind here. I got to pick it up a little bit. And you start doing stuff like that. But I mean, it sort of worked for me, but I think a lot of times I don't know. I think that's the beauty thing about power, right? Is that like you can kind of tell throughout. I mean, you don't have to be harp on it or just be obsessed with it, but you can sort of know, like, hey, okay, I'm at say 200 watts or whatever. That feels pretty good. That's where I should be. That's kind of what my thing is. But if I feel like I got a little bit more, you can kind of just, it's an element of gauging it versus, like if I'm doing it and there's hills and I'm trying to go by speed, it just doesn't work, right? Like I can get obsessed with, okay, don't let my average pace fall below this. And that's kind of what happens, right? For guys like me that are racing without it. And, I think I could do it by effort. I think it'd be better actually if I didn't have a computer on there, for me, because I understand like, hey, this feels pretty good. I can keep this going for X amount of time. And, if your mile markers are every 5 miles or something, you should be able to like kind of do that.
I know, but even sometimes 5 miles feels like forever.
Yeah.
Like I don't even have, I'm like usually 10, but on course like Galveston, where it's just a straight shot. Like once you get out of the coastline, it's like a straight shot for like 20 plus miles with no turns. You're just an arrow. Now, if they had a mile marker like every mile, I'm like, fine, no worries. But like not having a single one, I'm like, oh my God. Like, or it'd be great if they would have like a clock, right? At every single, like, you started here and like you could tell like, oh, I'm at this time and this time, or this makes sense. But that's just too much math. But yeah, I think the thing that I wouldn't want to negatively attribute to like where I am mentally and emotionally would be, how much longer do I have left? Right? Like, where am I in space? It's just one of those things. It's like, sometimes it's really, really, really hard to gauge. And the thing is, you always kind of peak. Like the times that I have worn a watch, I'll swim, and then when I think I've hit like 20 minutes, like I'll usually peak and just kind of see it. I'll take a stroke and lengthen out a little more my left hand and kind of just take a glance and see where I'm at, and how much I think I have left to go, just to see where about my swim is going to be. And sometimes I'm like 5 minutes short or 5 minutes wherever. I'm like, oh, this is good. Oh no, this is bad. Like, and so I just think kind of it's almost either got to have it and just go, or you just got to not do it all and just kind of see how things play out. I don't see the point, honestly, in having it on the run. I haven't used it on the run and I don't know how long. You have what you have, and it's like, if you can, but again, that's, I think, after you've raced for a certain amount of time where you can really know like how things should feel or shouldn't feel. Because what I've honestly found, like, that my watch has screwed with me more in a bad way than it has helped me in a positive way when I've raced. Not having it at Texas 7.3 almost like, I guess, 3 years ago. Jesus. I thought it worked very well for me to not have it because I didn't know what I was running. I knew it was 3 loops, but I think if I'd have saw what I was running, I probably would have slowed down some. Even though I thought I paced it fairly well. Chattanooga 17.3, I wore it and it effed with my mind. Because it was so hot that day.
Yeah.
That I was like, but I took off my heart rate monitor because I didn't want to see it so high. But I was like, I can run. Like, honestly, I can run a half marathon. I have my average heart rate like the 175, like, or around there. But I was like, take that off and just like put it on the overall time and just not deal with it anymore. And then Ohio, I didn't wear it again, and I had a better run. Like and I think again a lot of circumstance as well, but I think the more you race, the more you understand what it feels like or what it should feel like to pace yourself and run and have that practice. But what about the data? Well, like, what's the data? I can look at the finish time, what my split was. Like, that's really all I need to know is how fast I ran for the day, like how fast I was able to run off that bike. So yeah, you want some of the numbers, but it's ultimately like, overall how you did and how you feel like you felt. I know a lot of people would say that you got to have something, is you got to go back and look at it and see like the overall, I'm going to know, right? Just as a coach myself, like I'll know if but usually I can just say, yeah, that's about what I thought I had in me today, like based on what I saw in training. It's never, I think I've had very few races where, except for one, where I was like, that was a little bit better than what I thought I could do today. Like that was a little bit more than what I thought. It's usually kind of like around the ballpark. Like if that's kind of what I thought I could manage, like within like a 5 or 10 minute spread. Because even with conditions, I think you think like, yeah, I probably got like a 445-ish in me, one way or the other, 440, 450. That gives you, a little bit of, wind and, heat or whatever it is, but it's something ballparking. But I usually feel like, again, I've been doing this for 15, 20 years, like you get to that feeling, but you can only have that feeling. And I think understand what it means and what it feels like if you actually, you have to actually do that, right? You have to start out with 5Ks or 10Ks or half marathons with no watch, right? And see what happens. It's like, and I tell you, like the athletes that we have, we're like, all right, text them the day before, like, hey, by the way, you're going to go watch less this week. They're like, excuse me, what? But no, I got to wear my watch. What about the data? And then they go and they have an incredible race in PR. They're like, I never thought I could run that fast. And you're like, oh, but wait, like, do we need to go back and look at the data? Or are you just really happy you crushed okay, that's what I thought. You're really just happy you crushed it. We don't need to look at data. That's what I thought. Like things are working. Let's move on.
Some of my best races, I feel like, are the ones where I'm definitely not into my watch. I'm lost in the experience, right? So I remember specifically certain times when whether if it's an Ironman bike or something, and I'm not really paying attention to those mile markers. I'm just kind of riding and just being in the zone and looking at people and thinking about, sort of turning inward and whatever. And I'll look up, I'm like, damn, I'm already at mile 45 or whatever. Or like on the run or something, you just kind of like not even paying attention to the mile markers, because I've caught in myself in the other places, like, all right, just get to mile 5. And then you got to do 2, whatever. You start thinking like that rather than, I don't know if it's correlated, like I'm in a better place, so I don't care about that, or if I'm able to, not think about it. What I'm saying? Like some days I always go back to my last chat, 70.3 here. My run was just, it felt right on the money, and it just felt like, I talked about it, I felt like I owned the course. It didn't own me. So I wasn't really paying attention to the mile markers. I wasn't kind of like tied to getting to the next mark or whatever. I was just running.
You were on the offensive.
Yeah, I was running on this course and not paying attention to where I was. And I was just being swept away by the emotion and the energy of what was going on. And not, because you can, you start like adding up numbers and times and things like that. Then you just put so much more pressure on yourself. And I think in the long run, sometimes that can help you, because you're like, I got to push a little bit to get to this number or whatever. And it might be more painful, but like you just said, within a few minutes here and there, what would you rather have? Like try to flow through the race and see what you got at the end, or like try to just keep rigid on every single mile marker and be on pace all the time, or just let something unfold and see what it is. And it's going to be probably in the same ballpark anyway. It was just a much more enjoyable experience. And in retrospect, I pretty well left it out there, because at the end you just turn it up. I might have been able to turn it up a little earlier, but what's a minute or 30 seconds going to,
If I had yelled at you a little bit earlier.
Yeah, if you'd have got me on the other side of the bridge.
I'll own that one. No, I think and I love what you said there about how you should feel in a race, is that you're in control. Mm-hmm. The course isn't controlling you. The environment and the weather and the conditions, they're not controlling you. Your competition, they're not controlling you. And then also your watch isn't controlling you, right? Because if you said oh, you're in 8th place, you're 4 minutes behind so and so to get onto the podium in 5th. You're like, oh well, yeah, sorry, John, but I'm my watch says I'm running 8:30s, and that's my lactate threshold. I'm just gonna hang out right here, and I'm just gonna let it go until I get to the 5th. No, you're gonna run like hell. At least you should, to try and catch those people in front of you. You're gonna be like, you're right. I'm not looking at my watch anymore. I'm just going to run, because I honestly believe this. And I know this gives people like anxiety, like, oh, but you got to have your watch. No, you don't. If you're in the moment, and I think this in the spirit of competition of like, you just run. Like you want to be in control of what not that you don't want to race smart, but you have to, in order to be fully engaged and present in who you are and what you have on the day. I don't think you have to stare at your watch, because your watch is going to spit out a number that you're going to jump to a conclusion that's good or bad. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times it's neither. It just is what it is for the day. But your control of where you are in the mind is like, I'm running this race well. You glance at your watch and you think, oh God, I'm going too fast. I better slow. Wait a minute. I just told myself I felt awesome. But all of a sudden, once you introduce this level of doubt that's from your watch, that's, the holy grail, you're like, I better slow down. Or you think, I'm feeling great. Like I'm a mile 6. I think I can push it. And then you look at your watch and it says, oh, that's slower than I thought I was going. Maybe I'm not having a good day. You're like, wait a minute, you just said you were feeling great. So what's the point, right? So what's the point you're trying to get from looking at your watch when you go run? What is it trying to tell you? And what decision are you going to make? Oh, I need to slow down, but I thought I felt good. Or I need to speed up but I'm going too slow. You just need to be in the moment, and that takes practice, right? And it takes going on your runs and not looking at your watch and not having it. You have to understand and know your body. And again, like I know I say this a lot, but the longer I've coached, and especially the last 3 to 4 to 5 years, athletes are becoming more disconnected from knowing what they have on days, just knowing who they are after when they start running, without looking at they'd have to have a watch or a unit or something to tell them what is good and what is bad and what is fast and what is slow and what is right, or what's my heart rate's too high, but I didn't feel like it was. I think it was just off for the day, but I slowed. Then why did you slow it down? Like, it's like this. It's just you're entering too many metrics and honestly a lot of misinformation into the conversation that really should just be between you and your heart and what you have for the day. Like, it is that simple. What do I have? How do my legs feel? Can I go faster or do I need to go slower, right? And think through all those things and not have one. It's like having that annoying backseat driver, right? I'm doing fine. I'm on but watch out. Like, what? Oh, that person almost, well, I saw that, but I'm kind of just like cruising around. Like you don't just be quiet. It's in the backseat, play a video game, whatever.
Watch is a backseat.
It's just like, you just need to put it on cruise and go, baby, or just like go with the flow of traffic, and like just do your thing and see how you feel. Don't be so easily distracted or dejected from what your watch says. It's like, and again, like I know we said this before, and is like so often you see athletes that, and you will read it in Training Peaks, like that run felt amazing and I felt so good today. And then I looked at my watch and I can't believe. Let's rewind. What did you just say? Yeah. Oh, I felt incredible and I felt so strong. So why? Because I think we can all recognize, I noticed this morning, a guy went out and rode, and the only data I had from this guy's 4-hour ride was his cadence. An average cadence of 85 and a peak cadence of 156. No, thank you. No, there was no way he had a cadence of 156, So how many other times was the cadence off, right? I wasn't looking at the cadence as I cared about his metric. I just kind of had to chuckle inside about the amount of, concreteness we give to our gadgets and our data, even though we readily and frequently admit how inaccurate they can be on some days. Like, or that your satellite's not getting, like I was on my run, I was like, I went through the tunnel coming down Cherokee and like, I know my watch, because your watch isn't getting satellite, reception or it's off. And you're like, I know this isn't when I'm running. But it doesn't bother me because I'm like, it's just not right. But what I know is that what I know is right, then I feel good. And I didn't look at my watch, and I came back later, and the split dropped from like a 9:35 to now like an 8:02 in like a 30-second span. Like, you just can't believe everything that you see on your watch as like fact. How you feel, and it is the most important attribute you can have as an athlete, is to know thyself, is to understand how you feel and how much you have to gauge. And only you can tell yourself that, ultimately. Only you, because we never know what we're going to have each and every day we work out, every day. Like, you could have an incredible day. And some days, we all have these days in just life. Like, it's 5 o'clock and you're like, I thought I'd be more tired by now. Like, you've been super busy all day and you're like, usually I'm shelled. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I'm like bouncing off the walls. I got 10 minutes. Then you do nothing one day. And at 6 o'clock, you're like, oh, I'm just exhausted. I haven't done anything. You're like, why? How does this make any sense? It's because like as much as we know about the body, there's still so much I think we don't know, right? It's like the ocean, right? It's like, we know very little about the vastness and the insaneness that the ocean is, and like how just much is going on inside of it. You just don't know, but the more you can know yourself, I think the better you'll race, the better you'll train, the more fun you'll have.
Mm. Yeah, and just a quick thought on that, because I think we can actually feel better sometimes going faster. And we do a lot of zone 2 training and zone 2 running and things like that. And, a lot of people will say, it's hard for me to stay there. I feel like more natural in zone 3, mm-hmm. or I feel like, like going faster. I just couldn't hold back a little bit. Well, that's a big part of it, right? We're training in zone 2 and then, sometimes you get in the race, it's like, let it go. That's the time.
Let it fly.
Because your body might actually feel better in that spot a lot of times, and at least for short periods. And I go back to some things we've done in the past where we've done these like 2-hour run workouts, and at the end you're like, let it rip. And I actually feel better flowing sometimes in that fast pace. Now how far can you hold that? I don't know. I mean, I don't think we should put limiters on ourselves sometimes, and sort of like, you start overthinking it, and it's like, man, I need to slow down. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you really don't sometimes. But like,
gun it.
That's for the racing, right? For the most part.
Yeah. I mean, and occasionally just see what happens. Like, just rip it. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? But you're never going to rip it if you look at your watch, because you're always going to have some kind of governor on your wrist or on your bike that's like, but no, don't. But no, don't. That's way too fast. But you're like, I feel great. My watch says this, my brain says this, my expectation says this, my fear is that, and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, I forgot where I was. And a mile's gone by, right? So, just don't forget to enjoy yourself, have fun, especially again, if you're going to get back out here and start racing in the next few weeks and months, like, hey, just go out there and have some fun, and learn some about yourself and just race the rust off, and just like get out there and do some things and remind yourself what it's like to race, what it feels like, what's tolerable, what's uncomfortable, what are good signs, what are bad signs. And then go from there. Like the end time will be the end time, like there's enough to go on. Was it a good day? Was it a bad day? I feel like I pushed too much on the bike. I feel like I held back too much. I had a great run. I had a bad run. I paced it poorly. Okay, good. That's what we need to know. So we'll keep working on it. And we'll keep working on this podcast.
Yeah.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up. Stop sign.
Stop sign. And okay. As always, we appreciate you. We love you. We thank you for giving us your time. Again, if you haven't gone or just want to go again and need to, our one-stop shop is our website at c26triathlon.com. It's all things camps, coaching, and community. Again, for Mike's coaching, he is at crutchingiron@gmail.com. And for me, I'm at c26coach@gmail.com. Our club is still ongoing. It's on the third tab when you click on coaching. If you want to come visit the hub, check us out. You can email me directly on that, c26coach@gmail.com. We can do swim analysis, bike fit, bike testing, run form analysis, run testing, or we can swim all day. We can spend all day on your swim, which is what a lot of people choose to do. We can spend it however you want to. And then we also have a condo available as well that you can stay overnight, which is about 50 steps away from the door. So fly in. You don't need your bike. Just fly in, tennis shoes, cycling shoes, swim gear, ready to go. Easy trip. That's all I got.
Nice setup.
Thanks. Thumbs up.
Thumbs up, buddy.
Okay.
All right, man. I'll catch you later.
All right, man. See ya.